It is the night of December 25th, 1776. Across the American colonies, Christmas is coming to an end. Candles flicker behind small windows. Families sit close to fading fires, grateful for warmth, for shelter, for one quiet moment in a year filled with fear and uncertainty. But along the banks of the Delaware River, there is no warmth, only cold. The wind cuts across the water like a blade. Snow mixes with freezing rain, stinging exposed skin and turning the ground into a slick sheet of ice. The river itself moves slowly, dark and heavy, clogged with floating slabs of ice that scrape and grind against one another. Men stand along the shoreline in silence. Some stare at the river, some stare at the sky, others stare at their hands, swollen, red, barely able to feel their fingers. These men are not celebrating Christmas. They are what remains of the Continental Army. Only weeks earlier, George Washington had commanded tens of thousands. That army is gone now, broken in New York, driven across New Jersey, chased relentlessly by the most powerful empire in the world. Now, fewer than 6,000 men remain, and even that number is misleading. In just a few days, on January 1st, most of these soldiers will no longer belong to any army at all. Their enlistments will expire. They will be free to go home. Washington understands exactly what that means. If they leave, there will be no force left to resist British rule, and without resistance, there is no revolution. Washington stands slightly apart from his men, his coat stiff with frost, his breath visible in the frozen air. Ice clings to the brim of his hat. His expression is calm, controlled, but his thoughts are relentless. The British believe the war is over. Congress is losing faith. The people are exhausted. If nothing changes, the rebellion will not collapse in a final battle. It will simply fade away, quietly, permanently. Across the river lies Trenton, New Jersey, a small town, narrow streets, wooden buildings pressed close together, ordinary, unremarkable. Inside it, nearly 1,500 Hessian soldiers are stationed for the winter. They are not amateurs. They are professional troops from the German states hired by the British Crown. Veterans of European wars, men trained to march, to fight, to obey orders without hesitation. For weeks, they have heard the same reports. The Americans are finished. Washington is retreating. The rebellion is dying. On this night, Trenton is calm. Candles burn inside houses commandeered as quarters. Boots dry near fireplaces. The smell of cooked meat and strong drink lingers in the air. Some Hessian officers sit at tables, playing cards. Others drink quietly, relieved to be indoors, relieved to be warm. Christmas has passed without incident. Outside, guards pace the streets, more from habit than concern. No one expects an attack. No one believes the Americans are capable of one in this weather. Across the river, Washington is preparing to prove them wrong. The plan he has approved is bold to the point of recklessness. 3 separate forces are meant to cross the Delaware at different points during the night. At dawn, they will converge on Trenton from multiple directions, overwhelming the Hessians before they can react. On paper, it is elegant. In reality, the storm is destroying it. Ice chokes the river. Snow blinds the men. The wind makes steering nearly impossible. One by one, Washington receives reports. Supporting crossings have failed. Boats cannot get through. Artillery cannot be moved. Entire columns are forced to turn back. By midnight, the truth is unavoidable. Only Washington's own force will cross tonight. He now faces a decision that will define the revolution. If he retreats, the army survives the night, but almost certainly dissolves within days. If he advances, he risks everything. Most commanders would turn back. Washington does not. Shortly before midnight, the first Durham boats push into the river. They are large, heavy craft designed for transporting iron and stone, not men at war. Soldiers struggle to keep their footing as ice slams into the hulls. The river fights them every inch of the way. Oars slip from frozen hands, boots slide on ice-coated planks. Men curse quietly as freezing water spills into the boats. Artillery pieces, each weighing thousands of pounds, are dragged aboard using ropes and raw strength. Every cannon that crosses the river feels like a small miracle. Some men nearly fall into the black water below. Others cling to the sides of the boats, knuckles white, hands bleeding through numb fingers. Washington moves among them without speeches, without promises, only presence. He knows words would be wasted. The men already understand the stakes. Time stretches unbearably. Minutes feel like hours. What should have been a short crossing consumes the entire night. Washington keeps glancing east. The darkness is thinning. Dawn is coming. By the time the last man reaches the New Jersey shore, it is nearly 4 in the morning. The army is late, exhausted, soaked, half frozen. Officers gather around Washington, their faces tight with worry. There is still time to turn back. The men are barely able to march. Their powder may be ruined. A retreat might still save them. Washington listens. Then he speaks. They will march. The road to Trenton is a frozen nightmare. Snow and sleet drive into the men's faces. Muskets are checked again and again, afraid the powder has absorbed too much moisture. Fingers are numb. Some soldiers can barely feel their hands. Still, the column moves forward. Silently. Washington rides among them, his presence holding the army together. He does not speak of victory. He does not speak of glory. He does not need to. Every man understands what happens if they fail. Inside Trenton, the night remains calm. Hessian soldiers sleep deeply, exhausted but comfortable. Some have removed their boots. Weapons are stacked neatly nearby. Officers expect nothing more than another quiet winter morning. A few guards pace the streets, stamping their feet against the cold, eager for dawn. Then something feels wrong. A distant sound, muffled, out of place. Moments later, the silence shatters. American artillery fires at close range. The streets of Trenton erupt into chaos. Gunfire cracks through the narrow streets, echoing violently between wooden buildings. Snow and smoke mix in the air, turning the dawn into a gray, choking haze. Hessian soldiers rush from their quarters, some still pulling on coats, others fumbling for muskets. Officers shout commands in German, trying desperately to impose order on confusion. Drums beat urgently, but too late. American cannon fire again, tearing through walls and smashing into tightly packed formations. Windows shatter, doors burst open, horses scream as they panic in the noise. Washington's men advance methodically. They move down unfamiliar streets, guided by lantern light, shouted orders, and instinct. Snow crunches beneath their feet. Breath clouds the air. Muskets flash in sudden bursts of fire. At street corners, brief, violent clashes erupt. Hessian units attempt to form defensive lines, firing volleys that force American soldiers to take cover behind fences, wagons, and doorways. For a moment, resistance stiffens. Then more Americans appear, from side streets, from alleys, from positions the Hessians did not expect. The realization spreads quickly. They are surrounded. Washington rides forward through the chaos, calm amid the noise. He positions artillery at key intersections, cutting off escape routes and shattering any attempt at organized resistance. Inside Hessian headquarters, officers struggle to understand what is happening. This was supposed to be impossible. No army attacks in a snowstorm. No army crosses an ice-filled river at night. Yet here the Americans are, inside the town, firing from every direction. A wounded Hessian officer stumbles through the streets, blood darkening the snow beneath his boots. He watches American soldiers advance through the storm, faces hard with determination, and understands too late. This is not a raid. This is a fight for survival. Resistance collapses, units break apart, ammunition runs low. Attempts to regroup are crushed by artillery fire. Hessian soldiers retreat from street to street only to find Americans waiting. Some try to flee toward the fields outside town. They find American troops already there. Within less than an hour, it is over. White flags appear in windows. Muskets are lowered. Officers gather what remains of their men and surrender. Snow continues to fall as silence slowly returns to Trenton. The streets are littered with broken weapons, abandoned packs, and the signs of a battle that should never have happened. Washington dismounts and surveys the town. Just hours earlier, his army stood on the edge of collapse. Now it stands victorious. But the true victory is not Trenton itself. It is what happens next. News of the defeat spreads rapidly through British-held territory. At first, British officers refused to believe it. Washington was supposed to be finished. The Americans were supposed to be incapable of offensive action. Winter was supposed to have ended the war. Instead, an entire garrison has been captured. Confidence inside the British command fractures. Hessian troops grow cautious. British officers begin to question their assumptions. Winter is no longer protection, it is a vulnerability. In New York, British commanders quietly revise their plans. Patrols increase. Garrisons tighten discipline. The easy certainty of victory is gone. Across the Atlantic, in London, the news lands slowly but heavily. This was not a catastrophic defeat. It was worse. It was proof that the rebellion was still alive. An empire had been caught unprepared. An army believed broken had struck back. And across the American colonies, the effect is electric. Men who plan to go home re-enlist. Militia units reform. Supplies begin to move again. The rebellion, once fading, feels possible. Days later, Washington strikes again at Princeton, confirming what Trenton had already proven. This war is not over. Later generations will turn this night into legend. Painters will depict Washington standing tall in a boat, flag flying heroically in the wind. The reality was far less romantic. It was cold, it was dark, it was desperate, and it worked. On a frozen river, on a storm-filled night, when surrender would have been easier, George Washington chose action. The American Revolution did not end that winter. It endured, and sometimes endurance is the greatest victory of all.